Greetings, friends. It's Dr. B. Glad to be with you. And this is Winter Wellness Week. And what happens in winter is cakes and pies and cookies. So it's our delight to welcome back dear friend and colleague, Chef Lizette Marx of Marx Culinary, to share with us how to make an easy and fun and tasty and delightful remoulade. So welcome, Chef Lizette. Please share with us what's new, what's interesting, how you got here, and what we can learn with you today.
Okay, well, thank you all for coming. I'm really excited to make this cake again. I've been making, this is like around this time of year, I make these types of celebration cakes for my clients. I also teach cooking classes and show people how easy it is to make. So the type of cake that I'm going to be making is called a roulade, meaning you roll the cake. And so many of you at this time of year might see things like the Bouche Noel. Some people call it a Yuletide roll. That's what we're making today. And what's really cool about this cake is that it can be gluten-free without very much adjustment at all. In fact, there are classic recipes that are completely flourless. So this is sort of the variation here. I added a few, I don't know, I like to say I edified it because I put some brown flax in it, Ed, just for you. It works beautifully. And I also created a flavor profile that's perfect for the holiday season using all of the warming spices that are available right now that people are really kind of craving, not in their beverages, in their savory foods, and even in their sweet foods. So the spices, I kind of want to introduce you first to the ingredients, and then I'm going to sort of rearrange the order of how I do this recipe because I'm demoing. I've got one mixer, so I don't want to cross-contaminate. So I'll show you what I'm going to do, and I can explain why as I do it. So we have a filling for the roulade. So a lot of roulades, oh, another name for it is called Swiss roll, by the way. And you might have seen, if you've ever seen the Great British Bake Off, they make those Swiss rolls, and they often make it look really hard because people are rolling those cakes and they're cracking and they're crying. So anyway, it's not really that bad. So the filling is, this one is a whipped cream filling. But you can certainly make it dairy-free if you want by chilling a can of coconut milk and using just the really chilled portion to make the same type of filling. The idea here with the filling is you don't want it to be runny because it'll squish out the roll. So I'm going to start making it in a moment here. But basically in the filling, it's a chocolatey filling. It's going to have whipping cream. It's going to have some dark cocoa powder. So this is just a really nice organic cacao powder. And I actually used one that I found through Native Foods, and it has a little reishi in it. So I figured, why not? It tastes wonderful.
Oh, right.
Yeah, I mean, why not, right?
Yeah.
We got to throw in, even though this is dessert, it's nice to kind of bring in not just spices, but maybe some,
Absolutely.
you know, some other things. So I also am sweetening it with just 2 tablespoons of maple syrup. And it has some cinnamon, about a half teaspoon, and a little bit of vanilla. You could also swap the vanilla extract for vanilla bean, which would be beautiful in here, and then some mashed pumpkin. So it's going to have a kind of it's going to have actually a chocolatey look to it, but it's going to have the pumpkin-y backdrop of it. So we're going to mix that up in a minute. And the base cake also has pumpkin in it. So I have some mashed pumpkin for the cake. It also has eggs, spices, and I'll walk you through that. And of course, ground flax. This is our ground flax here that goes into the cake. So let's do the filling first, and then I'll walk you through the rest of the recipe. So we're just going to blend a little bit of whipping cream. Let me plug this guy in. Doesn't work if I don't plug it in. Okay, so let's get this on. Now, throughout this recipe, you'll know that it gets a little noisy, so I might not talk while things are blasting here, but I'll stop and start and explain things as I go. And please feel free to ask questions along the way. I'm
Yes,
totally
absolutely.
okay.
So So who's going to make a homemade cake this holiday season? Start it from scratch. Yay, Chris Bauman, Ed Bauman. You bet. We'll probably make this one.
Do you have a question, Ed?
No, just chatting.
Oh, no, I was just raising my hand because I'm going to make a
Okay.
homemade dessert, at least,
Okay,
with chocolate cacao.
there you go. What are you thinking of making?
So what
It's
I'm doing.
go ahead.
Go ahead. No, go ahead.
Okay. It's something that we just learned in Megan's class. It's gluten-free, dairy-free, sugar-free, but it has cacao and
Oh,
all sorts of good, healthy stuff. But I'll have to try this one another time. I'll try this later.
sure.
All right, so I whipped this until the whipped cream got thick. We're not going for stiff peaks just yet. Now I'm gonna add the pumpkin and all the other seasonings in here. So we're gonna add a little bit of vanilla, goes right in. Cinnamon. And this actually gets together really quickly, and then you can make this ahead, keep it in your fridge in a covered container. I wouldn't keep it for days in the fridge. Like, you could make it the night before if you want. And then a little bit of that cocoa powder, which is optional. Okay. And let's blend this up until the peaks forms up a little bit. Okay, so it's yeah, you know what, it's making stiff peaks, and you can tell here if you look at my mix, if you guys can see that, it just sticks to it. That's the consistency we want. We want soft but not stiff and not runny. Okay, so that's what we're looking for. So let me just get this the rest of this out, and I'm going to rinse these off. So now I'm going to set the filling aside. It's all ready to go. You'll see the reason why I did this is because I have to now make my egg whites and blend my egg whites into meringue. I also have to blend egg yolks. And so, but because those are both raw ingredients, I want to get the filling. I don't want to contaminate. So a little chef trick, okay? A little demo trick too, if you do demos and you have like one set of something. So we're going to place these back in here. Gonna plug it back in, and then let's do the egg whites, because the reason in the recipe I have you do the egg whites later, because when you're home and you're making this, you'll have time to wash out your beaters and then the egg whites won't sit, but I do this pretty quickly, so I feel pretty good about it. So we're going to whip the whites into a meringue, basically. So we add the egg whites. Egg whites should be cold when you're doing this application. In fact, ideally, even the bowl should be cold. So if you have a warm home, you might want to place things in the refrigerator to chill. Now, the other ingredients that you need for this, you need a little bit of sea salt, and then you also need a little bit of cream of tartar. And this helps to stabilize the whites once they start to form into stiff peaks. I'm also going to put 2 tablespoons of coconut sugar in here. So coconut sugar, it can be a little grainy. And so if you want it to be a little more fine, just blitz it in a dedicated spice grinder or a high-speed blender. If you do the high-speed blender like a Vitamix, make sure you don't just have this amount or get stuck on the bottom. So do a big batch. Okay, so let's get this going. All plugged in, here we go. Oh, hold on a minute. I see a malfeasance here. That looked a little loose. It just looked loose. Okay, we're good.
How can you do it where you mute the blender? Maybe you can hear me or not. So you're blending but we're not hearing it. What are you doing to make it soft?
So what I'm doing now is I'm blending until it gets foamy.
Yeah.
Okay. And I'm going to go up to stiff peaks, which means I have to do this for a few minutes. It actually doesn't take that long. It takes a couple minutes on high speed using your portable mixer, or you can use a stand-up mixer. But I find 3 egg whites in a stand-up mixer, I get a little more control, and I can actually get more of it with the portable. So now we're going to add the sea salt when it's at foamy stage.
Lizette, I think I was curious with Ed, which is for some reason when you turn on your blender, the sound gets muted over Zoom, so we don't hear it. So is there a setting?
Oh, it's not as loud. Okay.
No, I think maybe Zoom mutes it.
Yeah.
So it doesn't hurt our ears. It's quiet. I like it. I need that in my house. I try the remote control, but it doesn't work down in the kitchen.
Next bit is I just kind of get to really foamy stage, not soft peaks. Then I add the cream of tartar. Funny, these get stuck here. It's not moist or anything, but when your mise en place kind of sits around for a little bit, it sticks. Okay, let's keep
Do
going.
you know where cream of tartar comes from? What plant or food? Chris does. What do you got, Chris?
I think, isn't it grapes?
That's correct. Winner. Very smart.
Yay.
Then the question is, which part of the grape?
I think the skin, right?
I would guess that, but I don't know. I can't confirm it, but I think it might.
Because I think it's the skin.
We'll have to look that one up.
Yeah.
So I have now almost like soft peak stage. This is when I start doing the sugar. So I'm only going to do 2 tablespoons of the coconut sugar in here. So I'm going to you'll see me with the spoon, and I'll be gradually shaking it in. All right. So if you don't hear me, which is great because this is loud, this is good. So you know I'm blending to stiff peaks. So when I stop next time, I'll be at stiff peaks and ready to go to the next step.
I'm just curious, could you do that with like whole wheat flour or flours that are high fiber, low carb?
I don't think she heard you.
4 seconds.
She's in the noisy blending phase.
Right.
And this doesn't have flour in it. This is just a kind of a cream topping. It's like whipped cream. The cake can be made with flour, but the topping is cream.
Yeah, no, I meant the cake portion.
Yeah.
Yeah, I realize she's doing that.
Sure.
Okay. All right, guys. So that is this stage. I've got my meringues. You see how it holds its shape like
Yeah,
that?
lovely.
Okay, so now I'm going to set this aside. I'm going to make the next part of this recipe.
So Lizette, I have a question for you. At that stage, is it at the point that you can turn it around and it will still sit in the pot? Is that
Yeah.
how
Yeah, you
consistent
can
it is?
turn it over, like you
Yeah.
can do that.
No, but the
Oh.
one that it's in the pot. The one that
that's
you
in
just
here?
finished, meringue,
It's
yeah.
pretty
Can you turn
stiff, but it could slide out.
Oh, you can't, no, you
I mean, it
cannot.
could slide
Okay.
out.
It could
So I'm not
slide.
going to do that because, when they
Okay.
do that, they actually have to put something on the bottom of the bowl
Yeah,
so that it
Mhm.
sticks in because meringue,
yeah.
it slides. You see
moves.
that?
Yeah.
It
Yeah.
moves.
But it has shape. So I'm just going to get the rest of those out.
Peek it up.
Yeah, and now let me give these a quick rinse. And then we do the yolks. So because I don't have any flour, okay, I have to create structure with my eggs.
Mhm.
So that's why we're doing this foam method is what it's called. So let me get the yolks next. So we're going to do the yolks. And put this back in here. So more blending. I want to kind of get all the blending out of the way, and then you'll see how this goes together. So we do the, pardon?
You're beating, not blending.
Yeah, I'm beating.
You're beating the eggs, yeah.
Right.
All right.
Are you going to be the sound blender for the blender?
Pardon me?
No, sorry. I was asking Eddie if he wanted to.
We don't want sound effects. It's nice being quiet. That's good.
We should be thankful to Zoom for doing that,
Yeah, it's
actually
pretty cool.
recognizing that it's not human voice and then
That's
kind of
pretty cool.
expressing it. It's really good
Yeah.
algorithm.
Emma, you ever make cake?
Gazillions. I remember first time when I came to United States and somebody gave me cake recipe and said, it's like, oh, it's made with one egg. How can you make the cake without 12 eggs and half a kilo of butter? That's how we used to in Europe. So every cake, it's like 12 eggs and half a kilo butter. That's it.
There you go. Well, a pound of flour, a pound of sugar, a pound of butter,
Yeah,
and a dozen eggs, you got a good cake.
you do have a good cake.
So I just wanted to explain this bit. What I'm doing now is I'm whipping the yolks
sugar.
until they're thick. Okay, so they start to get a little thicker. And the more you whip egg yolks, actually, it starts to behave a little bit like a meringue. It will never get quite as light, but you can foam up your yolks as well. And then to stabilize it, I'm adding the remaining bit of sugar here, which is just 3 tablespoons, okay? So I'm going to add that in now. All right, so now I've got it nice and thick. It's what's called a ribbon stage. So that means when you lift it up and you drag what's dripping across the, on the beaters across, it kind of holds its shape. And this looks really nice. This is also a similar technique to making a Genoese cake. So that's a really beautiful French style cake. So now I'm going to do the other part of this cake. So we mix the pumpkin. So you can make all different types of, like you could use butternut squash for this. You could use yams, jewel yams. I like to use different style. If you made like, if I did this with a purple yam, I'd have a purple cake. Oh my God. Okay. Now I'm thinking. All right.
So you're in the cake side of it. The meringue is the topping, and now you're in the making.
Oh, no. This entire thing that I'm doing here is for the cake. So you'll see.
Oh,
So
I see. So this is actually the cake
This
itself.
is the sponge. This is
Oh,
what
okay.
you call
I
the
got you.
sponge.
Thank you.
So now we're going to add cinnamon. So I added about a teaspoon of cinnamon and just mix that in here. And then I have nutmeg, freshly grated nutmeg. Ground ginger. Now you could use fresh if you want, but I think this amount of ginger is good because it pairs really nicely, all the spices together. They
Also a small particle.
they play fair. It's a small particle, right?
Yeah.
And then allspice, which I love. I love allspice. I think it's a wonderful spice. It's got a lot of warmth to it. And then a little bit of vanilla. And get that in there. And just mix it really well. And then our famous here flax seeds, ground up to a powder, like a flour, okay? Just a tablespoon is all you need. And I mix it in a separate bowl so I can really get it mixed together, because I don't want to just drop it in these eggs yet. I want to bring it in once it's all together. So the cake batter is really nice and smooth when we're done. So just gonna add the rest of that in here. A little more, try not to waste any of it. And I have my oven right now, there's a little more on the edge, at 350, so I've preheated it already. And now I'm just gonna mix this on low. Okay. And now I'm done with my beaters. Put that to the side. Okay, all this is done. Oh my goodness, I'm done beating things. All right. Now we're gonna combine the meringue, the mixture. So the way to do this, you take a quarter of your meringue and put it in here. And you want to mix this well, okay? So don't stir mix, but fold it instead.
Mhm.
So I fold it so that it's fully homogenized, just completely incorporated, no streaks. It's gonna look the color of the pumpkin and the spices, kind of that nice color, cinnamony color. And then we do another quarter until you're done. And the whole time you're folding. And so when you fold, you kind of take your spatula, go around and then through the middle and then around. So that way you get what's in the middle. Because a lot of times people will fold only on the outer edges. The middle isn't folded. And then the batter will bake unevenly. And so you want to make sure, be gentle, but be thorough. Okay, so another quarter here. And by the way, this is something like for people who non-bakers, I know you guys are probably going, "You kidding me, Lizette? There's no way I'm going to make this." It's a lot of steps. But really, when you get it done, and if you just give yourself, you know, a few days in advance, this holds in the fridge for a while. Like you could break this out. I've actually frozen these roll cakes, unrolled them, and filled them with my own ice cream, make my own homemade ice cream in the summer.
Wow.
That's a hit. Baking, and this is great to share with you today because it only takes pretty much 12 minutes to bake, 10 to 12 minutes in the oven. So we're about there. And I'm going to show you how to put it in the pan and how to prepare the pan here in a second. So let's get this all folded through. And I'm going to show you the way this batter looks. Super light, like a mousse.
Mhm.
Okay?
The folding technique is wonderful.
Isn't it nice?
You know, it's so wonderful and it's so rhythmic and smooth and
It is. It's very
it's just
meditative.
great. Yeah. You don't want to beat up your sponge.
That's right.
Yeah.
So here's what we do. I take a piece of foil. We're not going to bake on the foil, right? We all know that. So we put the foil on the bottom of a quarter sheet. I'm using a quarter sheet, which is not a very big pan. You can see
Okay.
it's
Got
not a full. You can use a half sheet. If you do a half sheet, you're going to need to double the recipe so that it fits across, okay? Then you take a sheet of parchment paper and you lay it right in here. And this is a sheet of parchment paper that would fit like a half sheet. So like it's bigger than that. It's like 10 by 14 or 10 by 13 or something like that. And then you take coconut oil or ghee or, you know, your fat of choice that can handle the oven. And you just literally, like it's here, it's heating up a little because it cooled off. And I want this fully greased, okay? Not heavily greased, lightly greased, but uniform all the way across.
Completely. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Then we pour the batter right in.
It's like a pancake.
Yeah. It's funny, I did another demo where I made gingerbread waffles.
Oh yeah.
And it's kind of the same type of batter almost, but it's different because it has molasses and other spices and it's a waffle, it's not a cake. So it's totally different. But it has that lightness too because you do the meringue. So then you just make sure you spread it across the pan. And go all the way to the edge. So it's going to be a thin cake, so don't worry, because it puffs, okay?
It's a thin cake because you're going to roll it.
Because you're going to roll it. And you want it to be even, so you don't want like, you know, you don't want a crater on this side, you don't want a hill, you want an even surface. And so to get that, this is the tool I use. It's called an offset spatula. If you don't have one of these, maybe you have like a bench scraper like this to scoop up when you're doing your prep for veggies. You can use that too. So I take the offset spatula, let's go around here, and then I just make it nice and even. So I just finish it, okay? And then this goes in the oven, 10 to 12 minutes. And I said 10 to 12 because everyone's oven is a little different. 350 degrees. And if you're not sure if you're even, you can always lift up the cake and just sort of take a look at it, make sure it's even for you. It's pretty good.
Looks like bricklaying to me.
What does it look like?
Bricklaying. When you lay bricks, you have a tool and you kind of
You know,
put the mortar in there and you smooth it.
it's funny because my brother, he does classic car, I mean, not classic cars, but he does like all kinds of custom cars, and he does, he paints and he fabricates them, and he works with the tools he works with Bondo and all that. And I'm thinking, I do the cake, he does a car. Okay, so now we just put this in the oven. And then because this is a demo.
Oh, yeah.
Did it already, guys.
Voila, voila.
Voila.
You should have pulled it out of the oven, though.
I should have. But see, if I did, you guys would be like, what? You bake it in a towel? What? So this is what you do. And I'm going to show you how to roll it when it comes out. But I figured I might as well utilize my time well. So what I did was I rolled this after it came out of the oven. You want a warm cake is much easier to roll than a cold cake.
Sure.
So don't let it cool completely. Roll it when it's warm. And so what I did was I rolled it. And when you roll the cake, you don't have to worry. You can go ahead and let the parchment go into the cake. That's totally fine because this is the first roll. This is the roll that kind of sets the shape. So I'm going to carefully unroll it. The other thing I want you to know is that if it does crack on you, it's okay. Because there's this thing called, my Bondo is, icing, a little powdered, a little bit of.
We have spackle for that.
We got our own kind of tasty spackle for that. So now you take the filling that I made earlier, remember that? And I'm just going to just dollop it on here. I might need all of it. Any extra that you have, you can use for the outside. You can pipe it, dollop it, just simply frost it. Don't go all the way to the very edge because if you can go about maybe a ½ inch. If you want, you can go a little closer, but just know that it'll squeeze out if you do. And don't make it too thick, okay? Because then it's going to be squeezing out on the ends. All right, so now once you have that, now from here, you could put all sorts of other things, but just don't overfill because like I said, it'll squeeze out. So like you could put I would like maybe a little shaved chocolate, you could sprinkle more spice, maybe a little toasted coconut, little things like that, not big things, okay? And then we're gonna re-roll. So I'll turn it. Can you guys see?
Yeah.
And now I'm not gonna roll the paper inside anymore. I'm just going to roll it. So those of you who were in the sushi class might remember this is exactly what we're doing, but we're doing it with cake. And then there it is. Okay, so now next step, and I'm gonna go ahead and do it now, is I'm going to transfer it on a serving plate. Now you don't have to do this right away. I'm just doing this for the demo. You could wait, and then the cake's a lot easier to handle because it's soft. So wish me luck. One of these big guys usually helps, so you can stick it right under there and get your roll. Lift it off. Okay. Work for me. Okay, there we are. We're good. Just got to get that paper out of the way. I need like an assistant. Okay, and then we do this. So I've got my roll. I'm going to put it seam side down on my platter. Wash my hands. Okay. All right, so now at this point, you can actually give it a little shape with your hands. Okay, don't be afraid to touch it. And if you chill it, it's much easier to handle. Okay, so the ends typically need to be cut because they're a little bit, well, they're ends. They're not as neat. So you cut it on the end. I'll just set that aside here and then cut another one on the end here. And then you can clean it up as you go. Like if there's a little bit of filling in there, that's fine. And now the final stage, there's a lot of final stages here. So one is you want to clean the board or clean your surface here so that you have a nice surface. I'm going to use a little bit of this parchment to do that. And then like you can make all kinds of decor. You can frost this if you want with ganache. It works beautifully. Or you can simply, what I love to do is just keep it super simple and dust a little cocoa powder on it. And then I'm going to check my cake, my other cake, so I can show you how to roll it. So there it is here. Look at that, you guys. Not ready for presentation quite yet, but pretty close. You take a little cocoa powder, put it in a little sifter, like I have here, and go all the way across. And then I might decorate with a little bit of fruit or maybe pipe some little swirls on it later. And so this is the finished cake right here. So I don't know if you can see the roll, but can you see that? Can you all see that?
Yeah, it's cool.
Isn't that cool? Now let's look at the other cake. I'm just going to set this aside real quick. So I want to see how this other one is looking. Not quite there yet. So it would need about probably, looks like it needs about 5 more minutes. So
Time for questions?
Yeah, go ahead. Yeah, I can
Okay,
answer questions.
so
now.
have you explored or what would be the difference if you don't, because the only thing that it's keeping a cake together is the flax seeds. How about flax seeds instead of the ground flaxseed using the flaxseed butter? Or how about using almond butter or almond flour or hazelnut flour? Or can you just kind of tell us about the texture, or is it the same? Or
So yeah, so the flax seeds give it a little flexibility for sure, but you don't need them. That's just me, bringing a little Bauman into it.
That's great.
But you can use, like, you could make this chocolate and use cocoa powder as your flour. You could use cassava flour. You can use almond flour, finely ground. You can use pistachio flour, make a pistachio roll. You don't need to use like the flax. You can swap that out for any type of flour that you like. You can even make these savory. So I've done savory applications of this same method. It's just that I'm not adding any sweetener. Instead, I'm going to add herbs, and I might add cheese, or I might add some, other flavorings, or sauteed something. Like I have made one where instead of the pumpkin, I might actually roast a little garlic and onion and blend that into the same consistency. And then you make a savory roll. It's delicious.
okay.
Yeah. So there's
Okay,
a lot. Yeah, there's a lot of ways that you can go for this recipe. And what's nice, I mean, this is small, but a small piece of cake is all you really need. And then look how pretty that is. When I made this, the fancy versions, or people make the Yuletide log, and then they frost it and they make it look like bark, and then they make little meringue mushrooms, or they add little cranberries that are sugared. There's so many fancy ways to go. But my cake is almost ready, but not quite. It's so close. Okay, it's very close.
So
But go ahead.
I have a question. So is it like half an inch that you put approximately or would it be less than half an inch of the inside on the
Oh,
on the when you're about to roll it of the whipped cream?
okay. So yeah, you only use maybe not even a half an inch, just shy of that, just
Okay.
slightly above a quarter.
Like a third, like maybe a third or something.
Yeah, it's
Okay.
not, you don't need to put a lot at all. Because when you're rolling it, just think about it, when you're rolling it, it actually has that thickness and you want that spiral at the end.
Mhm.
And you want it to stay in the cake, not squeeze out of the cake. Too much is actually just going to squeeze out and make it hard to roll
Mhm.
because you'll get it's kind of a horror. I've overfilled these before and you'll see that, you know how like a tube of toothpaste and you'll see it like lava flow, it's like all pushing out towards the end of the cake and then, yeah, so not pretty.
If you were going to make a savory kind, what would you use as the inside? Would you use the whipped cream or would you use something different?
Yeah, so I was going to do it which when I say these things, I come up with these ideas and then they become a recipe, right? So a lot of different filling options here. I mean, you could make the pumpkin filling more savory and then add either a cashew cheese, or if you want it dairy free, or you could do mascarpone cheese or goat cheese, something soft to go in the middle with herbs, spices, all that goodness.
That sounds good.
Doesn't that sound good?
Yeah,
and
it sounds good also.
And on a holiday table, you can serve that and make little slices. This is not something you have this will feed many people. I could feed probably 8 people with this little cake because it's just a tiny slice, right? It's just a tiny slice. It has so much and it's airy and it's, of course.
But if you're making a savory, you did add the sugar into the egg yolks and
Right.
into the whites. Would you do something else or still go with the sugar there so that it's...
No, I don't need the sugar to stabilize it that much because the sugar does 2 things. It makes this a cake. It makes this The stabilizer really is egg whites and the cream of tartar and sea salt. Those are enough to stabilize.
Okay.
So you don't need to add the sugar. The sugar is just incorporated in, definitely holds those whites a little more,
Correct.
but I would skip it if I was making a savory. I would just do cream of tartar and sea salt and then,
Okay.
Tune in. A recipe's coming soon. The mind is going. But basically, let me check my cake. Oh, that looks about ready. Okay, let me take this out. 1 minute. So a couple things I want to show you before I roll is when do you know the cake's ready, right? When do you know it's ready to roll? So when you take it out and you take a look at the cake, so I might put it in for 30 more seconds, but let's see what happens. If I were to pull the edges and the cake comes away easily, I know I'm ready. If I touch it with my fingers, right, and it springs back a little, now I'm sensing it's springing back, but not as much as I'd like to. So I'm going to put it in for 30 more seconds. And it literally is like that. So I just put this in, not using any of the right fingers.
Could you use the toothpick method as well?
You could, but I really don't want to penetrate the cake. I'd like to just use my fingers and look at it pulling away. So you can see it's almost there. It's pulling away from the sides. That's enough to let you know.
Lizette, real quick, do you have
Yeah.
a fan on your oven? Do you need a convection function for this cake?
No, I'm not using the
No.
convection on my oven. I have a gas oven, so it makes its gas sound. But you don't need a convection. If you do use convection, your cook time is going to be a lot shorter. So you might it might be done by 7 minutes. I have another roll cake that takes 7 minutes, and it's just cocoa powder that's in the cake with the meringue. So that's something to think about. Like my gloves, guys?
Yeah, I was commenting on that. Those look industrial grade.
They are. Well,
Yeah.
because when I bake, bread
Yeah.
and things, ovens at 500. So
No, you don't want to burn right through that little, cloth stuff.
that's
Yeah.
right. That's right.
Been there, done that.
No fun. Okay,
Yeah.
this is ready. I'm gonna go for it.
I
Okay.
really want to eat this cake, don't you?
I know. You gotta
I mean,
come
come on, carve it up.
Okay, so now I'm gonna show you. Hold on just a second. I get one more thing, okay?
Okay. Cup of coffee, piece of cake, cup of tea. Now we're talking.
So to roll the cake, we need a sheet of parchment and place it right down here. Let me move this out of the way. And a tea towel. Okay, remember I had it wrapped up in a towel, use the same one. And then I'm gonna grab my gloves again. Do a little detail work here, okay? So before I invert the cake, I need to take this one off.
That's a tricky spot there, boy. Rolling the
not as
cake
hard
off
as
the
you
sheet.
think. It's actually not as hard as you think, okay?
Okay.
So you take, I make my own powdered sugar with coconut sugar and arrowroot.
Mhm.
So I've made this ahead of time, so you can do that. And
How
then you
much
just,
arrowroot to sugar?
1 to 1.
Okay, that's quite a bit. Yeah.
Yeah, because this is a dessert based
Sure.
kind of, you can do less, but this works out best for, like, if you're making buttercreams and things like that.
No.
So
That's okay.
you basically take your homemade powdered sugar, or you can use organic powdered sugar if you don't have any of this on hand. You sprinkle the top of your parchment paper with it. And now we get these, let me just do a little bit of doctoring here just to check this to make sure it's going to invert on me. You check the sides and make sure that, just with a butter knife or something, just make sure it's going to release, okay? And it will. It's a little sticky, but it's going to release on me. Another thing I want you to be aware of too with cake sticks together, so if things break or crack, or
Mhm.
you can get over, you can recover. So just peel it back on itself. I can already tell it's going to invert beautifully. And then I get my gloves on because this cake is hot.
Chris, I can see what your holiday present might be.
Okay, so now I'm gonna hold it on the edges with my giant fingers, and then I'm going to invert it. Whoop, there we go.
Ooh,
Okay.
flash.
That's it. Fast. Take this off. You see, now this is off and clean. And then take off your gloves because this is not that hot. And then we lift it up. It went under itself. Don't freak out. Just lift it out. And now we peel away the paper. So when you peel away the paper, press it down with your other hand, peel away a little bit at a time. And let the cake tell you where it wants to come off, because sometimes it has sticky areas that maybe you didn't brush that oil evenly enough. It'll let you know if it didn't, because it will stick a little. Usually the corners are the culprits, but know that you're also, remember how I cut the ends? Remember that?
Yep.
That's one of the reasons, because those are the less perfect ends. Now, you see one side that's going to be a little bit, but we'll cut him out. Okay, so now, move that to the side. So now I'm going to roll this cake and get it ready for, I'm going to take a little end off of this because I don't want that much of it. I'm going to roll the cake and chill it and get it ready to fill and decorate. Good thing I'm having brunch tomorrow.
Oh, yeah.
Making a brunch for my parents. It's their wedding anniversary today. 56 years.
56 years.
56 years. Definitely we're celebrating, yeah? So we're gonna.
How old are you? 54.
I'll never tell.
All right, I wouldn't either.
All right, so now let's see. What I'm doing here is, remember that homemade powdered sugar I made? I'm gonna shake it right on the cake. And the reason why is I want a little dry it out, just a touch. That's all. That's what I'm doing here. And
Interesting.
now I'm going to roll it. So to roll it, let's turn it. This time when you roll, you allow the parchment paper to go inside. So we go in, fold it in, and then just keep rolling. Boom, 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 boom. There. Okay. Just like that. Then you take this and you roll it. And then you can keep this in the refrigerator. You can decorate it the next day. What I'm doing, see, is I'm training the cake to stay in a roll. And then you carefully unroll it, just like I did with the last cake. Fill it with your filling that you'd like, roll it up, decorate it. And that is how you make a roulade, everybody.
Yay.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
Yay!
Cool.
That was
Yay,
really
did it.
good.
Wahoo, wahoo.
Now I'm inspired.
Oh, yeah, we're going to have one. We're going to make one.
We are definitely going to have one.
Definitely.
Yeah, and just think of all the possibilities.
Oh, yeah.
There's so many creative possibilities for this style of cake. And it doesn't have to be that sweet. So if you're really sensitive to sweetener and sugars and things like that, I'm not a fan of those, erythritol or anything. I wouldn't go there. I would maybe even you make the savory version that we were talking about. Definitely contact me and let me know. Somebody asked a question. I think it was Nora.
Yeah, it's about posting. It'll be in the baumanwellness.co website.
Yes.
So if you're not a member, you can become a member rather easily, and it's free. And then you'll get access to all of our content and things.
Oh, right. And some of my other recipes from the last
Yes.
Bauman Wellness are in there too.
Yeah, there's
They're not all desserts, guys. I do savory too. But I just wanted to share this. I mean, it's a time for celebration. Sometimes we want a little something sweet to eat, but not too much.
Not too much. That's the key. That is the key.
That is the key.
You are amazing.
She's good. She's a
You
winner.
understand cooking and baking with alternative ingredients and other, like any of the foods that any food that you've cooked and demoed and all that has always been really delicious. You really understand how food works.
Yeah.
It's
Cooking.
It's fun.
It teaches us.
Doing it.
The food teaches us what to do.
It does, right?
It
And I mean, you
does.
got to listen to the food. You got to look at the textures, smell it. You got to take a moment. That's why, I like to teach. I know a lot of people in your world, Ed, love to teach mindful-based cooking. But when you think of it, using that technique of mindful-based cooking and applying your culinary techniques to that, you really choose your foods, not just, you're choosing them. Also, are they health supportive? Do they have something to offer me? Or is it just, that's what I look for. It's like, even if it's going to be sweet, is it going to give me something really, a wonderful feeling? Is creating it, is the texture going to be lovely, and is it going to make people, are they going to enjoy it without having to overdo it? Right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So lots of good things to do, but it's always a pleasure to come here.
Oh, yeah.
And cook with you all.
Oh, it's so great.
Yeah, so
Commercial.
Jeff and I have Marx Culinary, and we are personal chefs, and we teach
That's right.
cooking. We create programs for health organizations or whoever wants them. We are doing some online teaching next year. We're finally getting organized. We were going to do it last year, but then I got too busy creating Bowman's program. So, this is how it goes. And I'm a coach for the Academy of Culinary Nutrition, which I love to do. I love to meet wonderful people there, two of who are here. And there's a book coming out in 2022, just so you know. Got another book. We created the recipes for this book, and it's called I Blew My Diet, Now What? And it's written by Connie Bennett.
Oh, yeah.
And
Is
she
that the
wrote
one you
the
worked on a
book.
couple of years ago?
Pardon me?
Is that the one you were working on several years ago?
Yeah, it takes a few years to do this.
It does. It
as
does.
we
It's
know.
well to come out.
Well, it's coming out May 3rd. Can you believe
Okay.
it? It's coming out. And so I have all my recipes in there are completely devoid of any sugar. So
Okay.
if that is something that you're looking for,
Yeah.
we've got 40 recipes in there they're so delicious. No
Wow.
sugar at all, no fake sugars, not even stevia.
Wow,
Got
I
it.
love it. I want a copy.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
You'll
Hey,
get a copy for
Lizette,
sure.
before we sign off,
Mhm.
could you talk
Yes.
about your experience doing cooking demos for Kaiser Permanente?
Oh, sure.
The
So-
the term, the response, the
Yeah,
opportunity.
so before the pandemic, Thank you. Before the pandemic, we were doing demos for Kaiser Permanente in the Diablo Valley region. And I would go there every season and go to every location in that area and give a plant-based cooking demo.
Yep.
And usually we kind of stuck to things that I could create in a conference room. So mainly it was a lot of different cold foods like salads and things like that. I'd have some prep ahead. And this whole idea started with the diabetes clinic at the Martinez location. And they wanted to find a way to teach their patients better cooking. But they didn't get the kind of buy-in from the physicians. They weren't really convinced, like, oh, we don't have the budget, we don't have the space, just all that stuff.
Wow.
So they decided, they asked me if I would create a program for the physicians.
Well, I've got a
Johan, could you mute your mic?
Yes.
Thank you.
So basically, they decided they wanted to train physicians instead, because you need to kind of convince them that this is a worthwhile effort.
Yes.
And so that's what I did. I started teaching physicians in all different departments. I would share demos with them, and then I would do a monthly dinner with the doctor where I create a menu for them, and I would have them cooking, and we would create a meal together. So it was a fantastic program. It was really fun. A lot of work.
So the doctors got in the chef coats and chopped and cooked, and did they clean up?
They did. Well,
Oh, see, that you're a strong woman if you get the doctors to clean up.
hey, I cracked the whip.
That's good. I know. I've felt it.
Yeah, I know. It's like, come on.
And did
75%
Jeffrey support you and collaborate with you?
Pardon me?
Was Jeffrey part of that process?
Yeah, Jeff and I did that together.
Yes.
Yes, we did that together.
My partner
And
cooks and is a
Yeah.
nutritionist and a great guy. Yeah.
very much, yeah. So
Uh-huh.
yeah, we've got all kinds of things we're cooking up, and it's just really fun. It's
great.
very gratifying to do something you love, right?
You got it. Well,
Yeah.
when it comes naturally.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank
That's
you.
the whole thing. Is it's so natural to us and to you and to other people. It's like foreign.
Yeah, for sure. Does anyone have any more questions about holiday cooking or
Yeah.
recipes? Well, I have a few minutes longer, or whatever you got, Ed. I don't know how much more.
I've got a plug on Lizette with photography by Chris Bauman. Did a beautiful book called The Flavors of Health Cookbook.
Mhm.
And there are a few copies left, not too many.
Hey, I have a copy.
Yeah, and then I have the ebook on that one. So if you want to pick up the flavors, there it is. Yeah.
Yep.
Drop a note to myself or Lizette. Yeah, there you go. Flavors. And
And there
we
we are.
aim to do a flavors too when we get some time, but this has been great.
Thank you
Beautiful.
so much.
Yeah,
Thank
happy
you.
holidays, healthy
Thank
holidays.
you so much. This was
so much.
wonderful. It was
I'm
nice
going
meeting
to-
all of you.
Much love.